Deltarune Chapter 5 helped confirm a theory that I lightly mentioned in my last video and have believed since my second or third playthrough of Chapter 4, but with the release of Chapter 5, I'm confident enough in this theory to make a video about it, so today, we're gonna talk about the weird route. Although this chapter's Snowgrave route was 5 minutes long, better than 0, it was very telling. So before we go into the evidence, let's get on the same page. Since chapter 4, it's been clear something is wrong with the prophecy, and Ralsei knows. The weird route has only crept its way further into the lore of the game, with this terrifying message appearing, so let's start with chapter 4. Chapter 4 was our first big hint that something was wrong with the prophecy. The biggest concern revolving these panels is the girl. Do I think that the girl is Noelle? Yes, and I'll lay out everything that points towards it, starting with why Susie is not the girl. Firstly, looking at this panel, it simply does not look like Susie. Her hair is not even cut similarly to the image, and while the girl is lacking antlers, I think this may just be to prevent a dead giveaway. Toby has a tendency to subtly drop things, and I don't think he would shove antlers in her face at the start of chapter 4, you know? The girl here also wields a sword. Susie cannot wield anything except an axe, while Noelle is able to equip swords alongside rings, specifically the Jingle Blade and Black Shard. If we skip ahead to chapter 4, The Lord of the Hammer, which is Gerson's book series that clearly parallels the events of Deltarune, doesn't say anything important. But the game Dragon Blazers, which is based on Lord of the Hammer, does help this theory. Susie, following her victory against the old man, asks him what character in Dragon Blazers should be. He laughs, calling her the dragon, and he also refers to her as the White Pen of Hope, encouraging Susie that she could change fate, change the prophecy. This would kinda only make sense to me if she wasn't the girl. Being the dragon instead of one of the playable characters mentioned previously is odd, and being able to change fate might be attributed to being in a position she shouldn't be, but this is a weaker point, so just keep it in mind. Let's move on to why Noelle is most likely the girl. The girl is shown to have a human-looking soul. Now yes, both Susie and Noelle are monsters, meaning that their souls should be upside down and white as shown in Undertale, but Noelle is the only character where this kind of stuff happens. This image of a monster having a human-like soul only makes sense for Snowgrave Noelle, where the player takes control of Noelle indirectly and is foreshadowed to be able to control her directly later on. This red speck from chapters 4 and 5 is clearly referencing Chris's soul, and none of these terrifying scenes in which we control this spec appear in The Pacifist. The idea that we force a monster under our control, especially through a soul-like entity, is exclusive to the weird route. It's exclusive to Noelle. But on top of that, it says love finds its way to the girl. Like, are you kidding me? Love, aka level of violence, is depicted in this game with this message: you got stronger. Noelle constantly references the idea that she's getting stronger, that she's enjoying getting stronger, that she's seeking out getting stronger in the Snowgrave route. Love is different from love. Undertale exclusively refers to level of violence with all capitals. This entire panel is in all capitals, so we can't make a safe assumption as to which love the prophecy is talking about. But I'm choosing to believe that love here is level of violence due to this soul. It just throws Susie so far out of the picture. The only route where Noelle is associated with a soul is the Snowgrave, and love only finds its way to Noelle in the Snowgrave, only when we force her to kill Darkners and get stronger. Susie also, throughout all 5 chapters, acts in a way that isn't clearly a violation of the prophecy, but also just feels uncharacteristic of a hero. In chapter 1, she refuses to listen to Chris, even joining the bad guys for a bit. In chapter 4, she creates a new dark world out of extreme immaturity, as she should know by this point in the story that every new dark fountain is a step closer to the roaring. A hero in the story wouldn't really do this, would they? That's not really hard evidence though, but combined with everything else, I think that Noelle is an extremely compelling candidate for the girl. That's just about everything that points towards Noelle being the girl, but how does that prove the Snowgrave route is canon? Well, that's where you kinda got me. Yes, Noelle becomes the most important and most powerful monster in the Snowgrave route, but it's still Susie that fights bosses with us, steals fountains with us, etc. So take a break with me to discuss the meaning of this. When you arrive at the beach with Noelle in the Snowgrave route, she decides to do, quote, something crazy, and Chris, controlled by the player, is forced to accompany her. For years, people have been speculating about a dark world or just something lore relevant at the bottom of this lake, primarily due to Onion-san's, RIP by the way, consistently odd dialogues about hearing something at the bottom of this lake. Noelle forces Chris, and yes, forces, saying stop does not allow you to abort the route, to attempt to cross the lake, and we seemingly fail. Now, I certainly don't think they're dead, because just no, but some people like to speculate that they entered some sort of dark world, or just other side, due to the fact that the grey blur put on Noelle's sprite disappears and returns to a non-underwater look as you get closer to the end of the scene. This is pretty much impossible to notice without inspecting sprite sheets, but even if they did cross over, it's not really relevant. I'm focused on this. Insert Chapter 7 Side B. Some people smarter than me have already speculated that Side A is the aborted weird route or pacifist route, and B is the Snowgrave route. Now this hurts my case because Side B implies it's an alternate route, but that's why I brought this up. If you do abort the route, you get a cutscene in which Noelle eerily narrates the events of the pacifist festival sequence while declaring that nothing has changed. You then wake up and begin what seems like the pacifist route, but some Dark World dialogues and code digging confirm that they are separate from each other in the game. I mean, Birdley is dead, so they kinda gotta be separate routes. We'll make the assumption that Side A is the aborted weird route and Side B is the weird route. Side A genuinely could be the pacifist, but for the purpose of this theory, that's the interpretation I'm choosing. At the end of Side A, Susie invites Noelle to the Dark World. When Noelle joins our adventures in chapters 6 and 7, then she has a good shot at being the girl. She does end up joining us in the pacifist as well, but none of this happens in the pacifist, so I'm gonna take the current stance that the aborted weird route as we know it is the prophecy. Now, it could be Side B, the weird route, but we don't really know what's gonna happen after the lake scene, so we have to wait and see if we really do skip to chapter 7 like this message implies. For now, we know that the prophecy should be one of the weird routes. Finally, moving on from the girl, let's talk about, well, Ralsei. We all know that Ralsei has ultimate knowledge of the prophecy. He says, "I didn't ask to know, but I do," when Susie confronts him about keeping information secret from them. This implies that he truly knows everything about the Dark World, presumably because he's the Prince from the Dark. But in chapter 5, Ralsei is teased by Flowery pretty much the entire time. Now, his fear of being seen around Asgore is very suspicious, and I plan to make a video about that later, but let's focus on a few specific things we hear Flowery say to Ralsei. Towards the end of the chapter, they actually have a heartfelt talk where Flowery reveals that he supports Ralsei in his hope that the prophecy will change. Flowery accuses Ralsei of allowing him to act out because he wants to see if Flowery can win. Ralsei wants to see if he can go off script to defy fate, because clearly something terrible is waiting for us at the end of the story, and Ralsei would do anything to prevent that, including allowing Susie to wrongfully take the place of the girl. A little unrelated but still relevant, Flowery also makes an effort to help Ralsei think for himself, something Ralsei believes is wrong for Darkners to do. It's uncharacteristic for the Prince of the Dark, the only Darkner of the three heroes and therefore the servant of Lightners, to pick his own drink vouchers per se. But this is kinda just confirmation bias, as Ralsei's obsession with serving us and Susie could just be his life's devotion to his purpose and his own low self-esteem, rather than an actual hint towards defying the prophecy. Either way, this all becomes very important when put into context. Just think about it. Ralsei from the very beginning of the story to now has made efforts to prevent us from killing Darkners. He converts Susie to the way of sparing in chapter 1, he straight up asks us not to fight multiple times, and he himself refuses to use any sort of offensive magic until Flowery rage baits him so hard that he has to protect his aura. It's pretty clear that Ralsei is a pacifist, I don't think anyone disagrees. But following chapters 4 and 5, it's become clear that the reason isn't so much because he can't bring himself to attack Darkners, no. He's trying to defy the prophecy. If the Snowgrave route is canon, that would confirm Flowery's accusations that Ralsei is trying to change fate. I mean, just look at this dialogue. It's so obvious looking back. Ralsei prays every day that the prophecy will change, and he makes no objection to Chris opening dark fountains, even if it fundamentally breaks the prophecy for one of the heroes to be working with the knights. But he allows it. He allows Susie to pretend to be the girl, he allows Chris to work with the enemy, and he asks us to spare Darkners even though he knows that's not how it's supposed to play out. He has to try. Ralsei even directly tells this to the player when Susie smashes the final prophecy. He thought if we just did something different, if we were kind enough, then it would change. You can even see Ralsei clearly upset and worried in the Snowgrave route. This could just be a sadness for Noelle, and Chris as well if he really does know about the soul, but if the Snowgrave route really is canon, then his sadness and sullen behavior could be caused by the knowledge that the tragedy is coming. A note while editing, there's no reason for Ralsei to be aware of the Snowgrave route other than it being written in the prophecy. There's just no way for him to have known that Chris was in danger. He's a Darkner. And now, for the final piece of evidence so far, Sans. This section is kinda weak, but worth mentioning. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't believe the Sans is Deltarune theory until chapter 4 confirmed it, and I'm ashamed that I was so wrong all those years, but let me redeem myself by using Sans to prove another theory. We all know this picture from Undertale. 3 smiling people and don't forget written on the back. We know now from this scene in the festival that this picture is most definitely the one drawn by Susie, but there's a clear distinction. In the normal route, she draws 4 people. In the Snowgrave, she draws 3. like the picture Sans has. Now this really doesn't confirm anything on its own, but when you combine this with everything else listed in the video, it becomes clear. When Sans was transported from Deltarune to Undertale, he came from the Snowgrave route, and that just adds on another 15% certainty to me that the Snowgrave route is the story told in the prophecy, because, well, that's the only route that's been confirmed to actually happen in the Undertale Deltarune timeline. All of this said, I think it's incredibly likely that the pacifist route is an attempt by the heroes to defy the prophecy, and that we are fated to go down the path of the weird route. Deltarune only has one ending, and what we consider to be the main path is slowly revealing itself more and more to be, well, messed up. So let's hope for a short wait till chapter 6 so we can see how all these mysteries unfold. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed Deltarune content like this, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!